Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Smite Night Podcast, episode number 2. I will hand this one straight over to Kara.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the Smite Night Podcast. And what a show have we got for you guys today. We are joined, of course, by the legendary... Is it too much to say legendary, Hazel? Am I allowed to go that far?
I would say it's thoroughly too much, but
too much.
Say what you say.
We'll go with godlike then, which I think is probably just a little bit below legendary. So of course we are joined by Hayzer, who will be with us today to have a little chat about all things Smite. And then also at the end of the show, we've got some Season 2 related news, some pretty big stuff, which will be of interest to everybody. So, of course, stay tuned to the end. Also joining me is Judas Priestley, who is a voice and face I'm sure you all are familiar with by now. Give us a little wave, Judas. There we go, a thumbs up. But today's show is not about Judas. It is, of course, about the other man that you can see on my screen here. It's a pleasure to have him with us here today. And we're, of course, very grateful that he's taken the time out of his very busy schedule of supporting every team that England are playing to join us here today. It is, of course, the one and only Hayzer. I'm sure you all know him by now or have seen his stuff on YouTube or social media or Twitch, but for potentially the new players amongst the community who maybe don't know who he is, Hayzer has been a big part of the Smite scene for a number of years now. He's been a top-level player. He's been a coach who's taken professional teams to the World Championship finals. He's now spends his time as a streamer and content creator. If you haven't checked out his stuff, go and see Who Wants to Be a Jamillionaire, or of course the world famous Neath speedruns, which was a very entertaining watch the other day. So Hayzer, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
No, not a problem, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. So first question, we're going to go fly straight in there. So as I mentioned in the introduction, you've done a bit of everything. You've been a player, you've been a coach, you're now a content creator and streamer. So what are the sort of demands of those roles? How do they differ in sort of a day-to-day? How do they differ in terms of how stressful they are? Which have you had the most fun with? And just touch upon, I guess, each one of those things and how they differ in terms of what it demands from you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I found coaching probably the most stressful because I was competing at the highest level as a player. I competed at the top level in Europe, but not in the SPL, so it wasn't quite as intense, I suppose, as the SPL was. It was very time-consuming and demanding in that role. I find content creation is the least stressful for me. Even though I didn't take playing too seriously, content creation is something I mostly just do for fun because I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, it's nice to make a little bit of money on the side, but it's mostly just for fun. And the roles, they differ a lot. I mean, player and coach, they're somewhat similar. I guess all three roles you need to kind of keep an eye on the meta and try and watch a lot of Smite and pay attention to patch notes and things like that and study the game a bit in terms of analysis for doing that on stream, and in terms of as a player and a coach, you've got to know a lot about the game. But I think content creation is just a lot less strenuous for me. I just have to kind of turn on the stream and go, or turn on the camera and talk, and it's stuff that I'm already ready to do. Whereas the streaming and the playing and the coaching rather took up a lot of time. Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 evenings a week plus game days, so it was a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. So player was the first step for you. So what was your sort of introduction to Smite? How did you pick it up, and what were the steps that led to you to be obviously a player that you say played at the top level in Europe?
So initially I saw Smite on YouTube. I actually played games on console back then. I was playing like FIFA and Halo and stuff like that. I was in first year of uni, I think, at the time. I was 18. And I saw some YouTubers who I used to watch play TF2, playing it, guys called Boo and Germa. They actually played with Stealth as well, who was pro player for a while now, where I works, I think, doing QA at high res. But I saw them playing it. I thought it looked super cool. I ended up building a PC the next summer, pretty much to play Smite. Started playing from there. Played a lot of the game when I probably should have been studying at uni. Second and third year of university, I spent a lot of time playing Smite. Fourth year, I played in comp teams a little bit. I got picked up by a couple teams originally by like a Romanian player. I don't even know if we ever went in comms, but I joined a team with a guy, I think he was called like Support King Ro or something like that, when the Ro was Romanian. I think there was a couple of Romanian guys in that team. Left that and then ended up hooking up with Deathwalker and Kalas, and I was in some pretty good company at that point. So they carried me to being a pretty decent player. And I ended up coaching them afterwards when I got a full-time job. So got a full-time job, felt like I didn't have the time to play anymore, so became a coach, and then I put infinitely more time into the game in the end. But
Yeah. So, and how did you find that transition from sort of player into coach? Because it's something that you see happens a lot in other industries. It's not just gaming, of course. We talk about popular sports like football and rugby and stuff. You always see players eventually go on to be coaches. And I've worked in a professional sports environment myself, and I always found that your ability as a player has little to no impact on how good of a coach you are. It's about your personality. So what was it you felt that allowed you to transition from being a player into obviously a top level coach, because you coached at a higher level than you played at, and obviously you coached at the very, very top. So what was it that you felt that you had that allowed that transition to happen?
I think one thing for sure is I got in at a good time. There weren't really, this isn't disrespect to the other guys who were doing the role at the time, but there weren't really any serious coaches, in my opinion, at that point. I was one of the first to really take the role and work hard at it. Honestly, maybe that's unfair to some of the other guys. I'm not really, I can't speak to how it was, but from the outside looking in, it seemed like I was the first one to really put time and effort into it. I was motivated, I was driven. I think I've always been pretty okay at talking, so that helps a lot in a coach role. You got to be able to talk to the players and explain things in a way that's not gonna, especially because you're working with young guys from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of personalities. So you've got to be able to kind of get on with everybody and not fall out, which I think, that helped a lot with the fact I was able to kind of build up a rapport with players, and I think that's what helped me. More so than having like crazy good Smite knowledge. I mean, I think my Smite knowledge at the time was good. It got a lot better when I spent time coaching, especially when I hooked up with guys like Araxia and Twig, who understood the game at a much deeper level than I did.
Yeah. That I completely agree. It plays a big part. And as I said, I worked in a professional sports environment for the Premier League, and one of the things that sort of opened my eyes a little bit was the difference you get in. Even though everyone's a professional footballer and everyone was at the same level, everyone was different in the way they approach things. So some players would turn up for training, didn't really care, kind of just had a kick about, got off as soon as the coach blew the whistle. Others would turn up, they'd treat five-a-side like it was a World Cup final, they'd do extra gym sessions, they'd sit and do extra work with the coaches. And as I say, the players who didn't care will turn up on Saturday and put in a 10 out of 10 performance. Is that something that you saw from professional Smite players, or is it because it's such a smaller group and more of a close-knit community that everyone sort of has to have the same mentality, or you potentially get rifts amongst teams, potentially players who question the attitude of a player? So yeah, how was gelling a dynamic of different personalities there, if they existed?
No, that's a good question. There is wildly differing scrim performances compared to game day performances. There's players who, they know it. Everybody in the league knows it. They're a different player on game day as they are in scrims. There's players who are notorious for, I think, in general, honestly, the SPL scrim environment and is not probably what it should be, and never really has been when I've been in the league. I was lucky to be on a team that took scrims seriously, but every year they would have teams who, you would eventually just stop booking scrims with them because they were late, or they had to use a sub half the time. Shout outs to Jermaine for that one. He never showed up to scrims. But yeah, there are a lot of players who have a load of talent, but I think some people are just able to float by and their performance on game day is good enough. I think maybe we're starting to move to the point where teams are gonna have to be more serious. I think the SPL is more serious. I know the EUSCC as well is the same. So I think it's probably it's getting better, but especially when I first joined the league in season 3, there's a very varying level of focus and attention span for a lot of the players, and there's I don't know. It's hard to say it without just directly kind of BMing players, but it's young guys in their first, job, and they're playing games and they want to have fun, and it's hard to treat it like a job because they've not had a job before, so they don't know what's expected of them really, and as a result, what's expected of them, the bar is way lower.
Yeah. So apologies to keep drawing it back to my own experience working in a professional sort of environment around players, but was there anything that you ever saw from the very, very best? Now, obviously, you don't have to mention names because, of course, confidentiality, and you never know, they might be listening. What was it you saw from the very, very best that set them apart from being very, very good? So we had a player who, if he made a mistake at the weekend, he would be in the office Monday morning saying, I want all the footage from that game, and I'm watching it, and I'm wanting to see what I did wrong. I played a pass wrong. I'm playing that pass 10 times in training. What stands out as that you saw and you think, wow, that's why this guy is playing at the top?
Yeah, well, I think for me, there were some players who played at the top and this wasn't their thing. But a lot of the very best players who I played with, it didn't come down to mechanics. It came down to the fact that Smite was kind of on their mind a lot of the time. And, you'd see something come in into Discord or whatever at midnight or 3 a.m. or whatever, and you'd read it and you'd be like, they've had this idea and they've put it in there and then they've gone back to sleep or whatever. They've done it in the morning. And I think it was just this single-mindedness, similar to the player you're talking about, single-mindedness on the game and on improving and on coming up with new ideas and trying new things and wanting to be the best and wanting to invent new things and new starts and all that kind of thing. I think that was what I personally loved to see in a player. It made my job a lot easier as well if somebody was creative and was coming up with things.
Yeah. So what was your style as a coach? Were you sort of a Pep Guardiola, analytical, going into finer detail, or are you a Brendan Rodgers man manager who just knows how to deal with individuals? Are you a Jose Mourinho, hard iron fist, blame everybody, but yourself?
I would like to liken myself to any of those guys.
I've set you up for
not that they're good, not that they're not great, but I don't know. I think my style was I was pretty chilled out. I think for the majority of the time, the only thing that would frustrate me is repeated mistakes and people not showing up were annoying for me. I basically. So you show up on scrim day rather, and you come in with some ideas and you come in with some things to practice. Hopefully some other players do as well. Talk about that. You give them feedback at the end of each game, give them notes at the end of the session, watch back any replays that you needed to watch back with them. I was just there, for the most part, I was there as an unbiased top-down view to explain to them, you would know that something's gone wrong in a game, but maybe not why that thing's gone wrong. And I was there watching it and I saw it go wrong in the game, and maybe I rewatched it again, and at the end of the game I can say, look, the reason that FG fight went wrong is our positioning was bad, we didn't have wards here, blah, 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 they got a good flank, I think, I don't know, I don't know if that explains my coaching style. I always find it difficult to answer questions about what you did as a coach, because it's quite an all-encompassing role, I think, in Smite. There's a lot of stuff to do, and a lot of coaches are quite different, but that's the way I'm mostly focused on it.
Yeah, it is very difficult, obviously, to teach the best in the world what they're doing wrong, kind of thing. So yeah, I imagine it is a very, very challenging thing to do. But on to more fun and relaxed things. So you've obviously transitioned from coach now into content creator and streamer. And you mentioned at the early part of the stream that it's more fun, it's more relaxed, and you just have it's less stressful. You're not having to constantly worry about it. So what is your sort of process for being a content creator? Do you sit down on a Monday morning and go, this is what I'm going to do this week? Or is it kind of, it's Tuesday, I've got a few hours, let's just go for it?
Well, for me, a lot of my schedule follows on the SPL schedule. I restream the SPL and I commentate over that. That's the kind of meat and potatoes for me of my streaming. Other than that, I kind of just make content that I feel like making or that people ask for. A lot of the time for YouTube, it's just sort of what's on my mind and what I think the community will be interested in. Is just if I get spare time. Normally I'll say on a week. I normally do it on a Wednesday. This week I actually recorded a video on a Tuesday instead because I was watching the football on the Wednesday. But no, I did record on the Wednesday. Never mind, I recorded on the Wednesday. I I just kind of decide that on that day I'm going to record this thing. Sometimes I'll have to spend a bit more time on it if I'm gathering clips or something like that, if I want to do a more in-depth analysis type thing. But most of the time, I don't have to put too much planning into any of the stuff I do. Jamillionaire is a pretty big exception because it takes a good few hours to get the questions together for that and to make all the graphics up and stuff like that. But most of the stuff I do is pretty low maintenance. It's just kind of press the go live button, update a couple commands, update the title, and then just drink some wine and laugh at some Smite plays. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's important, isn't it? When for any content creator out there, you have to enjoy what you're doing, and it has to be something that doesn't take a lot of time and effort and isn't too demanding. Because at the end of the day, you need to be enjoying what you're doing. If there's anyone out there who hasn't seen Who Wants to Be a Jamillionaire, I fully recommend tuning in, especially if you want to see Hayzer dressed in a shirt and tie, which he was for his last stream, channeling his inner Chris Tarrant to ask some tricky Smite questions. Judas, is there any questions you want to ask to Hayzer before we move on to more Season 8 and Smite game related stuff?
Well, you've kind of you covered a lot of the bases, but I will sort of bring it back to more of the coaching time. I think is generally a place that most guys here don't get to see, and I think one thing that few of the people listening might be quite interested in is what would you say is a sort of maybe a step to make or a place to focus on for, say, these players who we've got in our own little league. Where would they need to focus on and maybe push towards to try to make the jump? It is a big step going from just amateur play in amongst smaller leagues. So what would you say is the big thing, like I said, to make the step forward into pro gaming and specifically maybe pro Smite stuff?
It's a hard question to answer. I mean, every team and every player should. There's going to be different things that people are going to need to focus on. I think at the between the sort of amateur level and the SCC or high-end SOC level, you basically are just looking at individual play for the most part. Being able to play the meta stuff, playing that stuff well, and trying to just sort of get the reps in, just practice, play a lot of the game, and play as much at a high level as you can. Compete with the teams that are better than you. Don't get disheartened losing. Losing is one of the best things you can do to learn, especially at a lower level. If you're losing, I mean, it's cliche as anything, but if you're losing, you're learning. If you go and you get stomped by a player, maybe you could take some time to watch some demos as well. I think that can be helpful. If you someone in your role who you respect who's playing really well, you could grab an SPL demo, for example. There's that option available to you. You can go. There's a post on Reddit somewhere about how to get the SPL replays, and you could go and you could sit down and you could watch a full game of Sam for Soccer 2 if you're a jungler, and you watch from his POV and see what he does and think about why he does it and think about how you can work to be more like him. That's what I would say. If you really want to bring your game to the next level, at that level, I'd say you want to focus on individual stuff more than team stuff, and I think just trying to emulate the pro players and trying to figure out why they do what they do would be my probably key piece of advice.
Awesome. Sorry, Judas.
Oh no, carry on. I'm just saying thank you. It's so much expert knowledge being thrown at me. It is really awesome to see. Something like that for just a lowly little caster like me, hearing a good player talk about what it takes to be a good player. And I hope everyone watching is really taking this in, because that is expert level advice you shouldn't really be getting for free.
Yeah. Yes, I agree, but we don't have any money, Judas, so keep that on a little bit quiet. So anyway, enough about your career and the path that you've been on. Let's talk about current events. So Season 8 so far, what have you made of it? It's obviously had quite a few big changes. The Conquest map's changed. The meta has shifted a couple of times. We've obviously got the big patch notes coming soon, with arguably the biggest change in Smite for maybe 3 or 4 years, some would argue. So what's your take on Season 8 so far, and how do you see it going once we have this big change next week?
I think it's been fun. I think the meta's been fun this year to watch. I think for the most part, we've seen, I'm talking more on SPL level, but we've seen a lot of surprises. We've seen like Scarabs beat dragons and things like that. So it's been an interesting phase of Smite that we've watched so far. I think I would have really liked it to be on more of an even playing field. I think that's probably the one black mark on this season is the EU players just being stuck in Europe and having to play on high ping. I think it's a shame we don't get to see the league at the full potential. I'd love to see Tony Warriors playing at the top of their game, the best they could play, the Valks. I'd love to see Johnny getting a real chance. I think he's a great player, and it's a shame that we need to watch him almost, shackled and held back by his ping. But I think overall, this season of the SPL has been good. I think the teams are all good and they seem to be working hard and trying to improve, and they're hungry. The lower end teams are still hungry, which is cool. And I guess as for next patch, I think it's going to really freshen up the meta, which I think it needs. I think solo lane in particular is getting freshened up. Cucullin, King Arthur, and Wukong all going to fall out of the lane. I think ADC needed that freshening up before. It got it. We saw changes there with the trans meta coming in over the Devils meta. Now we're seeing solo lane switch up at the same time as boots getting removed, which is going to be huge for every role. I'm really interested to see what the games next weekend look like. It's almost a shame we have to have one weekend of SPL on the old patch, but I guess it'll give us something in recent memory to compare it to at least, and we'll see how much things have changed in a week's time.
Yeah, it's worth noting as well before we dive too far in, is that Hayzer has actually done a patch notes review show over on his YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, when this goes out on YouTube, I will post the link to that in the description below, and also to his Twitch and socials as well. But anyway, back to Season 8. So obviously boots being removed is going to be a huge change. I think there's certain gods that are going to drop away, and there's certain playstyles that are going to drop away. And there's going to be more value in like items with movement speed and stuff. I definitely agree with the changes to solo lane. I'm a solo laner myself, and I will be delighted to go into games and not be guaranteed to face one of the trio that you mentioned with Guardian Boots, Mystical Mail, and Stone of Gaia as the first 3 items. I could almost pick that for you in the picks and bans screen. Which gods do you think are going to be the winners and losers of this patch? Who's going to drop away and who's going to rise from nowhere? A bit like Chiron at the start of this season, just to right to the top of the tier list and start getting played away. And if you want to answer that with whatever Fine OK plays, I agree, because I think he single-handedly controls a lot of the meta with his YouTube uploads. But yeah, how do you feel it's going to change?
Well, I think a lot of the same gods will be played. I mean, the differences are going to, I think some supports will fall off pretty hard with no more tank boots. That was a crutch which supports had to get them through the early game and make them survive CC. It could mean that gods like Athena came into the meta and fell off slightly, but she could be straight back in with no more guaranteed CCR on 2 roles. The taunt becomes that much more powerful. I think in solo lane, we're going to see more Guardians. With Vamp Shroud, which means we might, I don't know, it could have a lot of a knock-on effect, because Vamp Shroud's going to make double Fizz solo jungle on the other team be quite weak, because it has Fizz Prot on it, so it's going to make solo laners really tanky if there's double Fizz. So maybe that means we'll have magical Fizz on the solo side of the map all the time, a Fizz jungler, a magical solo laner. I don't know, I've been thinking about it a fair bit. But I think until we see the patch, it's going to be hard to say exactly how the meta is going to shift. But those are the feelings I've got just now. Individual gods-wise, I don't know. Athena's one I mentioned. I suppose the taunt could make her a little bit more in vogue. I think I did initially wonder if gods like Sol will get a little bit stronger, because you no longer have to go boots, and you have the option of going some different starters. So you could go tier 2 Spear, or you could go tier 2 Bancrofts. And certain gods, maybe we'll see Anubis get the meta with a tier 2 Bancroft start with the boots coming on automatically. That'd be cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say right now who's going to be the most powerful gods. I'm just excited to play the patch on Tuesday.
Yeah, me too. I think a lot of people have mentioned about magical ADCs, the likes of Freya and Sol making a resurgence. Obviously, Freya she had a really big time midway through season 7. She just came out of nowhere, started tearing it up, and then sort of completely fell off. And is it going to be a yearly thing now? Freya's going to come back midway through season 8 as well. And yeah, I'd love a bit of Goobis. Let's get Goobis back to the top of the meta. You heard it here first. This is where it's all going to start. Judas, is there any questions you have regarding season 8 patch notes or anything that may be coming up?
Yeah, I think it's definitely possibly the hardest prediction to ever make is what will happen come the mid-season patch, because there's so much being changed. Like you said, it affects every single role with boots being removed. But I'm just wondering how much it will affect sort of team play nowadays, because obviously a big part of Smite is counter building. Okay, that's always been there. It's always been very prevalent. That's why certain gods don't get played. You saw when Shell added block stacks, you had a lot of auto attack based junglers not played. But now that you've got so much ability for counter building as a team, because basically everyone's got a whole item slot extra. Do you think that would change a lot more in terms of like on the spot thinking, and will players who shine in that sort of area shine a bit more, or will it be sort of because everyone has the option of an extra item, will it not really come into effect all that much right away?
I think it'll have a little bit of an effect. I don't think it'll be so much. Well, at least at the top level, I think the players, they know how to counter build for the most part. I think they're all pretty Smite intelligent at this point in their careers. They know the items that are good into certain gods and certain picks and when they should pick them up. I think one effect that it could have in that sort of vein is that 4 Fizz comps and 4 magical comps, although we see them a lot less, could become a bit less common because of just the fact that people are going to get Proteums online earlier. People are going to start with you could start with a breastplate tier 1 or something like that. If you're into a double Fizz lane, you don't have to rush those boots anymore. You can get Prot online sooner, which means that going bruisers without pen in a 4 Fizz comp isn't going to be nearly as effective as it was before, in my opinion. But you never know. I just know I say that, and then the Jade Dragons will bring out 4 Fizz and start abusing the fact that if they get some early levels, they're going to have 3% more movement speed than the enemy team and run them down somehow. I don't know. I just know that I'll somehow be horribly proven wrong on this, but I feel like 4 Fizz could fall out of the meta.
Yeah. So we are approaching the end of the half an hour that we originally scheduled. We obviously don't want to take up too much of your time, but we have got a couple of quick fire questions that we've gathered over the sort of last couple of days. So the first one is, what is the future of Hayzer in Smite? Are you looking to get back into either coaching or playing, or are you pretty happy with content creation and the casual, relaxed nature of it?
Happy where I am. Yeah, I'm happy where I am. The future's hopefully, I would love to get to cast or do analyst work at Worlds. That's my current goal, I suppose. But going back into coaching and playing, I don't think so. I'll sub for a team if they need me to sub or something like that. But I don't want to go back into scrimming X times a week alongside my full-time job. Is too much.
So we're not going to see a Neath World Championship speedrun?
I don't think so. You never know. I never say never. But right now, my plan is to not do that.
Yeah. So for those who want to see Hayzer's analysis and casting and be able to support him on what is now a potential journey to Worlds, where can they catch your analysis and your live stream, and what's the best way to come over and support you?
Yeah, I just stream over at twitch.tv/Hayzer. Just come over, follow, watch, and interact in chat, maybe play some marbles races, see if you can win some codes. It'll be fun. Just, I'll be nice. That's what I like. Just come to my chat and be nice, and we'll get along great.
Awesome. We've got a couple more. Number one, is it true that you taught Don Doug everything he knows, and without your guidance, he'd still be playing full tank Artemis in Arena?
I think he taught me everything I know. Actually, he was the coach. He was the man. My original coach, Captain Doug.
Yeah, I think he's everyone's coach at the moment. He's doing coaching sessions in our league, and I must say I watched one of his feedback sessions the other day. It was absolutely brilliant. I'm not surprised to see someone who he coached reach the level that you did. Not surprised at all. Next one we have, with the Stranger Things Battle Pass about to arrive, what would be your dream Smite tie-in? It can be any show. It can be any franchise, whatever you like, what would make you throw the money and buy the battle pass straight away?
Good question. I don't know. I quite like the Avatar Battle Pass. I did watch Avatar, but even then, I'm not a crazy skin guy. I own a lot of skins, but I don't know, they don't excite me anymore like maybe they did 5 years ago. Maybe I'll go like Dragon Ball Z. That could be cool. A Dragon Ball Z Battle Pass. I bet they could make some cool skins out of that.
Yeah, a lot of people when we did this last week said Dragon Ball Z. We had a couple of people say Marvel, we had Star Wars, but yeah, Dragon Ball Z was a pretty popular one. I've got 2 more questions on my end, and then I'll throw it over to you. This question is football coming home ? I'll answer that one.
Correct.
No.
Hopefully not. I worry that it might be coming home, but we'll say it's not coming home. But will it into existence?
Yeah. And finally, who was the first god you had diamond?
Oh, that is a good question. I think it was Apollo or Anhur. I'm going to say it was Apollo, is my thoughts. I had loads of A gods diamond first. It was Apollo, Anhur, Agni, Artemis. I think I had all of them diamond probably before anybody else. I don't know. I think I was just lazy when I was picking my god. Probably just went for the top of the screen. And just clicked one. Yeah,
it's not scrolling.
It was one of those two hunters, Apollo or Anhur. I think are still my top 2 worshippers now.
Yeah, awesome. Judas, is there anything from you?
No. I think I'm about all wrapped up. I just want to say thank you very much, Hayzer, for jumping in. For this. It's absolutely massive for our little league that we started up. Well, Karen School started up. I'm not taking any credit for that, but yeah, thank you for coming by. I think we've pretty much covered all the bases when it comes to where to support you. I've dropped a little link in the chat for anyone looking. Obviously, there will be a link in the description on the YouTube video for your channels and everything. But Hazel, do you have anything you'd like to leave with the stream before we let you go?
Just thanks for having me on. It's cool to see people supporting the amateur scene in Smite. It's I think it's great that people have a place to go play. If they don't want to be, super hyper competitive and playing against some of the best players in the region, it's nice that they have, even somewhere that is quite competitive, like the Conquest League that you guys have got going. It's cool to see people supporting the scene, and I applaud you for it. And I hope it keeps going well going forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Genuinely, it means a hell of a lot for you, obviously, to just pop in and give your expert analysis on many things. We are, of course, just a small little league set up by just 2 guys, although we have a much bigger support team around us now. But yeah, it genuinely means so much. So thank you so much for giving up your time today. I will, of course, when this goes out on YouTube, put all of your socials, YouTube, Twitch, everything, Twitter, all there, so people can come over and support you. And hopefully we can send a little few more viewers and maybe even some subs your way as well, because I promise you won't be disappointed with the content. He is genuinely very, very entertaining to watch.